In 1848, in Cavendish, Vermont, there's a man by the name of Phineas Gage, and he was a foreman on a railroad where they were blasting through mountains to lay new track. And the way they would do that is they would drill a hole in the rock, pour blasting powder in the hole, and then sand over the blasting powder, and then they would tamp it with a long iron rod, and then they would set it off, it would blast, and then they would start over again. Well, Phineas Gage on that day made two mistakes, and it proved to be detrimental for him. The first mistake he made was he forgot to put sand in the hole. So when he went to go tamp the blasting powder down, and the sand is supposed to avoid sparks, when he went to go tamp it down, it sparked. The second problem was that as he was tamping down the blasting powder, he was leaned over the rod and looking to the side, talking to somebody. So when that spark ignited the blasting powder, it turned that iron rod into a missile that went up through his chin and out the top of his head, taking part of the frontal lobe of the brain with him. Now, miraculously, Phineas Gage survived, but people that knew him and accounts of what he was like after the accident said that his personality drastically changed. And doctors struggled to relate anything to it because the medical advancements weren't like they are now. But they struggled to understand the relation to the change and what Phineas Gage was acting like after the accident until about 150 years later in 1994, when a man named Antonio Damasio was working with several patients who, either through other accidents or injuries or sickness, were missing the same part of the brain as Phineas Gage, that frontal lobe of the brain. With Phineas Gage, which is the part of the brain, come to find out, that is responsible for feeling emotion. So Antonio Damasio had all of these patients that were incapable of feeling emotion, and he was able to prove that by testing them. He hooked up wires to them and had them watch horror movies, and not one time did their heart beat faster or anything. They just didn't feel emotion. He had a friend, or a patient whose friend died, and the patient was emotionless. The spouse left another patient, and again, they were emotionless. So they were incapable of feeling emotion. These patients were smart. Other than the fact that they didn't feel emotion, they were pretty normal. Some of them, their IQ was off the charts. They just couldn't make emotion. They couldn't feel emotion. And then what they found out through the different studying is that these guys couldn't make a decision either. And example was, after meeting with a particular patient, they talked, and they were talking about how their week went and stuff, and it was time to decide when to meet the next week. And when the patient was trying to figure out when to meet, he couldn't make a decision. Now, he knew what was going on the next week. He's like, well, on Thursday I have my kid's soccer practice, and on Wednesday I have a haircut, and I'm supposed to go get gas in the car on Tuesday. But when they tried to nail down a decision to meet, this individual could not make a decision on when to meet. He just couldn't do it. And so Antonio Damasio says that a brain that can't feel, a brain that doesn't have emotion, can't make a decision. Emotions are tied to decision making. Carlin's been saying this for years. 100% of buying decisions are emotional. 100% of those. And so a lot of times we like to just put facts and lists and logic and think that people will logically make a decision, and that's not what works. So you got to make sure that in your marketing efforts that there's emotion, not just facts and lists. On your website, is it just logical, or do you have some emotion in there, or both, or do you even know the difference, or can you help? Can we help with that? Do you incorporate stories and emotions into your presentations at your live events? In your first, second, and third appointments, are you trying to appeal to your prospects' logic or emotions? Are your emails only factual and logical, or is there an element of emotion in them? And it's not one or the other. It needs to be a combination of both. If you have any questions on this, we'd love to be able to help. Just give us a call at the number below, and remember, at Tucker Financial Group, you may be independent, but you're never alone.